What's what's happening? Benton here. Good God, man. I did not even have the mic potted up to begin the broadcast and going live early. Some of you may have noticed the thumbnail changed at least a couple of times. The titles changed about 4 times. I never truly spoke on some of these financial and banking issues yesterday when Kim Before the Storm came on the broadcast. And I became incensed and was shouting him down. And Zetetic Warrior is live, so anybody, I would expect low numbers. And then I know that OTW is going live at 8 a.m. What's up, Yurt? Oh, are you going? Oh, good, fantastic. I'm glad, man. I tried to fight it until later, but my internet is so terrible that with it being Friday, the network congestion kicks in earlier and much stronger. So realistically, this is probably my only shot without packing up and going to the library. And I'm just not inclined to do that. Yeah, one watching. That's right. Music holds a secret. This may not be one of my more popular broadcasts as far as the size of the audience. But if I've got Yurt and Music holds a secret here, I'm good. Rob will probably cruise through at some point, right? Maybe a Roy Duggan. So I'm happy. But Yurt fellow, feel free to if you ever need a minute or two to get something off your chest, feel free to hit me up on email and I'll email you a link, sir. There you go. Yep, indeed. But if I want to go sit in the library and wait until 9 a.m. to even be able to walk in the front door, I'm an early bird, y'all. I'm not trying to wait. If I wake up at 3 a.m., it's like 6 hours of twiddling my thumbs. It's too much, man. Hey, what's up, Scott Core? I'm assuming that's you. Corporate Fiction. Good to see you, sir. And I keep threatening to replay some of Yurt's broadcast because he always makes really good points that I would like to respond to. But for whatever reason, I'm just out of the habit of replaying content and responding to it. Even my own content, which I used to replay at times and respond to my own. I think I did like at least 3 different versions of commenting on when me and Sly Shy got into it that one time. Right. Yeah, there's definitely. Thank you, sir. Right back at you. In a thought experiment. The Yurt fellow. I'm the Benton creatures, apparently. But yeah, the internet, there's definitely been a lot of network issues. And if I go a little too phony sounding radio announcer voice, I'm trying to clean up. I'm lapsing into my native tongue a tad too often for my, based on my own view, right? And I am the internet ghetto dweller. I suppose most of you folks are as well, right? So Monday is the day when I must give more money to the people who run this facility in order to remain here. And if I had my shit together, if I was a little more organized, I might be inclined to roll on out of here solely based on the poor internet and nothing else beyond that. You can see the scales on that mugshot. Yeah, and something I've been working with for probably about a month now is, and so much of the communication has moved online, obviously, and so I am surrounded by MAGA bozos here in Arkansas. However, I don't hear them saying anything about the all of the things in the news that we know are bothering them, right? When in reality, I understand that these people's already chaotic internal space, just imagine how much worse that is now that their boy is, under heavy fire, right? Talking about Trump. And as y'all know, I almost never talk Trump. Very rarely do I even talk about Trump. And, while I understand that it's fake, part of me enjoys that these people that I really do despise on some level, these MAGA bozos, are, sort of going through it. Because that's the price they pay for believing. That's a good question. I don't know. That is the mugshot, apparently. But yeah, which one? Like Ben Carson said, there's two Trumps. He more or less said, I'm with the good one, I think is what he said. It's something along those lines. Dick Gregory talked about that a lot, the two Trumps. So maybe there are actually two Trumps. And I am a conspiracy theorist. I identify as a conspiracy theorist. Good to see you. Crumley, we're going live in a very crowded, or what's about to be a very crowded morning slot, morning show slots, whatever we're doing over here. Realistically, unless I drag myself down to the library, which I don't see happening today, maybe over the weekend, we'll see. I'm not exactly sure. But of course, they have even less of hours, the library. Yeah, shout out to Dick Gregory. Indeed, this is not an exaggeration, I've probably listened to and or watched every bit of material available on YouTube involving Dick Gregory as far as him talking. And probably the same with Louis Farrakhan. Yeah. Whatever that makes me look like. But yeah, good to see everybody. Yeah, Dick Gregory. Well, and lest we forget, Dick Gregory surely must have been some sort of a government agent or MK Ultra or whatever, because he went on TV with Geraldo and some other fella that I always forget the name of in the 70s and publicized the Zapruder film for the first time. And Gregory claimed that somebody just sent it to him, is what Gregory said. So the Zapruder film, the first time the public saw the assassination of JFK, somehow Dick Gregory was involved in that. The same man also claimed to have like 4 of the crystal skulls at a certain point. So, I mean, who even knows? And I do want to address the financial system, because people, I don't know that people realize that, yes, the big banks do get free money for nothing. And in fact, the way that the 08-09 crisis was solved, air quotes solved, was the Federal Reserve made it clear that the Fed would supply however much liquidity was necessary to these banks. Meaning, what is liquidity? It's free money for nothing. That's what it is. And then the Kim slave in here attempting to dismiss out of hand my very nuanced and complex and deep understanding. I've forgotten more about how the financial system works than he's ever known. And that's not an exaggeration. I've forgotten more about this thing than he knows now. That's not an exaggeration. I studied this stuff for an entire year. When I say studied, I'm talking about at a desk with books and articles and motherfucking multiple notebooks. And in fact, when I first started living in the streets with nothing, although I was in my car, I had stacks of notebooks that I had recently been studying, because I tend to take notes since I'm so visual. Just double stacks of notebooks, filled, every page of them filled with my note taking. I know what the fuck I'm talking about here to some extent. So yes, that's liquidity from the Fed is literally free money for nothing. That's exactly what that is. But Kim doesn't like living in a world in which he does on some level believe in the system based on his own statements, based on him trying to dismiss out of hand, fractional reserve banking. Sir, you're not listening to a fool here, sir. Yes, that's a piece of the puzzle, but to just dismiss what I'm saying out of hand, I know about fractional reserve banking too. If I start describing fractional reserve banking to you, it's only ever going to be in a specific context. But yes, free money for nothing. That's the banking system. Why is that? Well, it's because of all these, it started with the mortgage-backed securities and all these, very complicated financial instruments. And so that Alan Greenspan himself, and then maybe even Lawrence Summers, now that I think about it, Larry Summers. But I remember Greenspan more or less claiming at one point, and he was considered this financial genius, he basically admitted that he didn't even really understand how derivatives worked. What is a collateralized debt obligation? And then even Kim, trying to talk about the financial system yesterday, left out some very key points that he just completely skipped past. Why? Because he's brainwashed and he's programmed when it comes to the financial system. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. The so-called truth community, just as heavily programmed as the general public, just as heavily programmed. And a lot of this programming seems to be around, why is it the CBO folks are a little bit more inclined to actually believe in the system? And none of those issues were ever fixed, resolved, or addressed. So the way the Fed fixed 0809 is they made it clear we will give all of these entities, meaning financial institutions, as much money as they need to continue doing business. And why do they need all this liquidity to do business with each other? It's because if I'm Chase Bank and I know exactly how much of a shambles my books are in, my ledger, then I also have to assume that Bank of America's books are just as bad, if not worse. So I can't do business as Chase Bank with Bank of America because I can't trust them to pay me if the shit goes south. So here come the Fed. Hey, how about we give Bank of America gigantic, effectively unlimited piles of liquidity, aka free money for nothing. And we'll also do that with Chase Bank. Hey, Chase Bank, here's big old effectively unlimited piles of cash, free money for nothing. Now you can do business with Bank of America, and Bank of America can do business with you because now you can trust each other to get paid. Now Chase Bank knows Bank of America can pay up. That's literally what happened. And it continues to this day, folks. And yes, is fractional reserve banking part of that puzzle? Sure it is. But only one part of it. The banks owning the Congress, so much so that we've had people in Congress during 0809 and the couple of years after that, we had sitting Congress people just verbalize it. The banks own the Congress. I'm talking about in those words. But we know that the general public has no memory. People don't remember that this happened. It's like it never happened, see. But Benton remembers. Just like I'll never forget the fake pandemic. I can't forget 0809 when I woke up one day and I still had cable TV. And my TV, no matter what channel I tuned it to, every news station told me, well, if Americans don't pass the bail, if Congress doesn't pass these bailouts, then businesses aren't going to be able to get the loans they need to pay their workers. Well, I knew enough about business to understand that, yes, certainly businesses do take out short-term loans for various cash flow purposes. However, what kind of failure of a business can't pay its workers without loans? See, so we already know something's wrong, and there's fear mongering. And at that point, I realized, you know what? I don't understand this thing enough. And I better shut the fuck up until I educate myself. So I spent an entire year, and when I say an entire year, I'm saying 5 days a week, minimum 4 hours a day, minimum, in formalized books, articles, and note taking for a motherfucking year. Until any of y'all have done that, I'm going to go ahead and consider myself the resident expert in such matters. Until I hear somebody else speak about these things in a superior fashion to me. And I'm not really addressing the audience, so I apologize if that's how it's coming off. Addressing people like the Kim slave. But see, he doesn't like living in a world in which Benton has such a greater grasp of these topics than he does. Because probably part of him doesn't want to admit that yes, it's, we are all necessarily engaged in commerce to varying degrees through a mechanism in which the entities at the top just get free money for nothing, also called graft. But here I am in the so-called truth community where so many people are very hypersensitive to anything even approaching grift. Grift is when an individual person or a small group sort of either uses a scam or is sort of something that may seem like a scam to get small money, to get little money. Graft is corruption on a massive wide scale, such as when the politicians and the state says we're going to build a $1 billion, we're going to have a $1 billion upgrade to this particular stretch of interstate. Well, we know from experience that by the time they're done with us, that 1 billion turned into at least 2 billion. Why? Because the politicians, no matter what, the politicians steal half the money. That's called graft, folks, and almost nobody has a problem with graft. But the same people who have no problem with graft, boy, don't let Benton get to grifting. Don't let Benton get some food stamps. Meanwhile, the same people who have that viewpoint, they cash the stimmies. Now you are what you claim to hate. You've become what you claim to hate. So shout out to Thomas Merton, who more or less wrote, well, it's great to hate those things, but it's no use to hate them in somebody else or in something else. It's really only any good to hate those things within yourself. See how we get into the self-loathing? And then the self-loathing wants to go out and attack Benton for having the audacity to just say, hey, Dumbo Kim, you don't understand the financial system. And you don't. Because if you haven't come to the conclusion that, in fact, it is free money for nothing, the fact that he immediately pushed back on me and did not want to accept that, that doesn't say anything about me. That says everything about Kim. Because that's the reality, Kim. It's called liquidity, sir. It's called quantitative easing, sir. Which version of QE are we on now? Which version of QE are we on now? And I don't mean quantum epic. Good God. What is this? Yeah, of course. Kim has many positive attributes. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot there, man. But in my view, it's way too late in the game to be believing in the system. The reality is all this stuff that Wizard's been saying, that's all true. But it's true because in part of how fucked up and fraudulent our entire financial system is. And the reality is, I know that what he's saying works. Why? Because some people did apparently what Wizard's talking about, and they did it on a massive scale, and they got prosecuted. And I think some of them probably went to prison. It was these people that were, talking about using these various financial instruments and more or less using the government system to get sent fiat, right? And we saw in the state of Oregon, since I'm a news junkie to some extent, some broke lady with absolutely no knowledge of anything just went into TurboTax, typed in a bunch of fake numbers. State of Oregon gave her like a $2.5 million tax refund that she was not entitled to. Now, we just assume that the system works in a way in which that can't happen. But the system's not set up for that. The system is set up for, the people, it's set up for certain requests to be made and certain requests to be fulfilled. That's how the system is set up. And it doesn't necessarily have mechanisms in place to prevent any of that. But yeah, will the system absolutely probably attempt to prosecute Wizard if he acts on what he's talking about? Yeah, probably. But that doesn't mean that what he's saying can't be done. It really doesn't. Probably Wizard's smart enough to realize, well, they will most likely come after me on some level. But now maybe he can do some small versions of it and get away with it, right? But what's he getting away with? No, he's more or less maneuvering through, from my perspective, Wizard is trying to maneuver through a fraudulent system and use it to his own advantage, which I would say isn't that what he's supposed to do on some level. Because again, it doesn't seem to me like it's possible to opt out of this beast system fully. Therefore, regardless of what I think of this thing, I'm forced on some level to engage with the beast system and especially the financial system. And that's what it is, man. What it does no good to pretend like these things are other than what they are. Yes, Bank of America gets free money for nothing. And in fact, right after 0809, as Henry Paulson is going on TV every day giving these debriefs, and that Kashkari bozo. Yeah, I followed every bit of that in real time. Shout out to Alex Jones, who deserved a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of the bailouts, I can assure you. Greatest newsman of his generation. Of course, also a government info/disinfo agent, as far as I'm concerned. It's just not helpful. And just imagine these people who saw what 08, 09 was, understood it on some level, and went right back to using banking services. That's the definition of insanity. I don't use banking services ever since then. I said, fuck this, I'm done. And yeah, I have a prepaid debit card because I pretty much have to get paid when I work as a truck driver. Pretty much have to. Beyond that, I'm not having nothing to do with this. At a certain point, I was broke and had been living in the streets for years. My dad contacted me, and I was more or less like, hey, man, I got random people out here helping me out. My own family won't help me. So then he decided he would send me $40. I said, man, go to the post office, get a postal money order. Well, of course, he goes to Wells Fargo. He says, well, I got a Wells Fargo money order. Is that okay? I said, man, I would pay $40 to not go in a Wells Fargo. Literally. And I was broke. I said, I would pay $40 to not go in the Wells Fargo. And when I was doing day labor and getting paid on a check and had no choice but to go into Wells Fargo at that time to cash my check, they harassed the fuck out of me every time to try to get me to sign up for a checking account. Meanwhile, what did Wells Fargo get in trouble for? Oh, they just created millions of checking accounts that people never signed up for. And who went to jail for that? Nobody. Why? Because we don't send corporate executives to prison in this country, except for maybe Enron, right? With some notable exception. We don't send politicians to prison. That's why I don't believe Trump's going to prison. Although if he does, well, then that'll be the exception that proved the rule, right? So even if I'm wrong, I'm right. How about you? I get I'm on the email list for the stuff he does on Free Voice, but I don't even listen to those anymore. Jimbo's asking about Matt. Well, and Matt, I'm sorry, Jimbo. I think Matt's right about that because Matt's talked about that it's got to be some kind of AI or supercomputer running the entire financial system. So, because of my extensive knowledge of the 0809 crisis, and I'll put my knowledge up against. I would say I qualify as a lay expert in that stuff. I really do. Based on, I've held a crowd in downtown Seattle for 45 minutes describing all the conditions that led up to the subprime mortgage crisis. You know, I know enough about this to that intelligent people listen to me for an extensive period of time talk about all of this. And I just told the whole thing. I don't even know it well enough to tell the whole thing anymore. But yeah, so what I said about this crisis is I said, okay, this, they're making it seem like this is now a repeat of 0809, even if you look at and then you also had the FTX parallels with Enron, right? So there's a lot of running of the same script. But what I said was, the Federal Reserve had been raising interest rates. So I said, what I'm looking for is, the assumption is that the Fed will have no choice but to bring rates, damn near to zero and maybe even go negative for the first time potentially. And I said, if they can keep raising rates, if they can keep rates high and especially keep raising rates, and high in this context would pretty much be almost anything above zero, by the way, then I know for sure it's not real. I mean, meaning that it's just an AI or an algorithm or a supercomputer or series of supercomputers and algorithms running the whole thing, which I now believe basically. It cannot be any other way. So it's not real, Kim. So of course it's unlimited free money for nothing. And the graft is free. That's what this is. Well, see that, but that's the thing is the fact that Fulton County Jail says if you're charged with a felony, you stay in court until your date. That has nothing to do with Trump. See, the reality is Fulton County can conduct its business however it wants to. See, that's what people don't realize. The fact that they have a procedure for how they normally do things, that's not relevant with respect to Trump. Look, same thing with this Sam Bankman-Fried. He's supposedly incarcerated, and his lawyers are raising hell up because he's not able. The jail he's at, the facility he's at, will not supply him with Adderall. But I actually read the article, And what they said, what the officials said, and the medical staff said is, they said, "Oh yeah, we will give him his Adderall, more or less. We will give appropriate care, but more or less, the way we conduct our jails is we don't. If people come in here with scripts for Adderall, we don't continue them on Adderall. That has nothing to do with whether or not Sam Bankman-Fried is going to get his Adderall. Same thing with Trump. The fact that what they do normally with felons has nothing to do with what Trump would encounter. See, has nothing to do with it. And he, of course, and I'm talking official fiction. I know it's all fake. I'm just talking official fiction. Of course, he's going to get preferential treatment. There's no way he wouldn't get preferential treatment. It's literally not possible. And the county officials could hate Trump's guts, but they know on some level that he may very well be in a position in the future to where they may possibly be able to get repaid a favor. That's how this works. That's how politics works. And all politicians are garbage at every level. And the fact is, when somebody in Fulton County, Georgia gets charged with a felony, 99.99999% of the time, that person has absolutely no juice politically. So what a person who has political juice or could have political juice in the future, and in fact, perhaps the highest amount of political juice we've ever seen in our lifetimes, or at least way up there, what they normally do has absolutely nothing to do with Trump. Nothing. Yep. Thank you, Lucy. Thanks, Lucy. Much appreciated. Yeah, Music Holds the Secret says Wells Fargo would not cash his final check in Texas because he closed his account, even though it was drawn on them. Yeah, these banks, dude, even before the financial crisis, they were already annoying as fuck. Even back to my old McElroy Bank in Fayetteville, which later became Arvest, which is more or less owned by the Waltons, as far as I can tell, the Walmart family. But so they issued me a debit card. Like, this was in the early days of debit cards. So I went to the ATM and I checked my balance. Well, McElroy Bank decided that I had no funds, and they charged 50 cents or whatever for a balance inquiry at the ATM. So they bounced my balance inquiry. And see, this shows you how things have changed. So I got an NSF. I went into the bank. I think I maybe even printed something out. Like, I think I had the receipt, or I had some sort of piece of paper that showed I was negative. I just threw it on the counter. I said, I don't know what this is, but I fully expect this to get taken care of. And I just stood there while they reversed it. And they said, oh, yes, of course. Why? Because back then, if I if I just went to try to buy something with my debit card, if I didn't have the money, it just said declined. The banking industry had not yet gotten to the point of intentionally allowing me to overdraft, because people were not willing to accept that yet. And so for whatever reason, their system wasn't set up. The system should have known to just reject my balance request, my balance inquiry request. But there was no discussion. See, now it would be like, oh, well, sir, there's nothing we can do, right? I would just immediately be told, well, that's the way it is, and there's nothing we can do. But even back then in 95, it was still enough of the good old days. Well, I don't even call them the good old days, but it was still enough of the old days that they just immediately and without hesitation just made it right. Do you think that would ever happen today? Of course not. Today, they intentionally let one. So why would I ever have a checking account ever again if I know that these people they want me to go negative so they can charge me fees? And in fact, the banking industry, just in NSF fees alone every year, it's in the billions. I mean, a bank is the definition of a parasite, y'all. But then I've got the Kim slave in here defending them on some level. Bro, it's the worst of the worst. Banks are the worst of the worst. And y'all can talk about tax paying all they want. I hope you know, Kim, most of your federal income tax goes to pay interest on the national debt. Most of it. Yeah, corporate taxes pays for the military, according to my research. Almost all of federal income tax goes directly to already rich bankers. So shout out to Highly Suspect for correcting his status. He's no longer a U.S. citizen and he's no longer a taxpayer. Good for him. I plan to join you in the near future, sir. I'm procrastinating. I'm planning to get there. But just imagine understanding on some level how fucked up this thing is and still choosing to align oneself with it. It's sick, Kim. It's a sickness. What ain't nothing truther about that, sir? There you go. Exactly. It's predatory. The entire financial system, from the perspective of the masses and the little man, is predatory. Every single checking account Lucy's ever had starts out with no fees, touts it, and then after 2 to 3 years, they sneak charges in and overdraws me and they send him to collections. Never again. Dude, I'm in collections because of T-Mobile, because I went into a T-Mobile and thought I was signing up for a T-Mobile hotspot prepaid. They lied to me, signed me up for postpaid, which I would never sign up for. So then I just did not pay them after the first couple of months. Meanwhile, I just assumed that I was on prepaid and they turned my shit off. No, they just kept my service going for like 4 months. That's their problem. Why? I didn't use the service. I never even agreed to it. Now I probably accidentally signed some shit without reading it. That's on me, right? But I'm never going to pay that money. I'll never pay them. U.S. Bank tried to come after me for something at a certain point. I said, that's y'all's fault. I said, that's your problem. The guy, the collection, he couldn't believe. The collections guy couldn't believe. I said, yeah, I said it's U.S. Bank's fault. I said, they never should have done that in the first place. I said, I'll never pay that money. I said, I got that money right now. I said, I got that money. I said, I got enough money to pay this right now on me. I said, you will never get that money. It's called principal. Oh, your credit. I don't give a flying fuck about credit. Other than it making it really hard to rent an apartment. Other than that, I don't suffer because I have poor credit. It's not a problem. Meanwhile, I can still get a car loan as long as I'm willing to go to 30%, right? Oh, hey, fuck you, Capital One. Yeah, I'm going to feel bad because Capital One gave me and ex-wife number 2 a loan on a 09 Camry, or sorry, 09 Corolla at 28% interest. And eventually we just quit making the payments. And they, as far as I know, they never got their car. Yeah, we drove that motherfucker for damn near 2 years without making payments. Fuck you, Capital One. That's your problem. I'm going to feel bad about Capital One. Meanwhile, guess what? Capital One also gets free money for nothing. Free money for nothing. I can't feel bad for them. That's how they can write all these car loans. And if it doesn't get paid, it doesn't matter because it's all smoke and mirrors anyway. But again, the system understands humans. The system uses our own tendencies against us. Humans, the number one feature of the human, in my view, is we seamlessly and effortlessly adapt to our environment. So we just all adapt to the horrific, nightmarish, predatory financial system. Well, not me. Not me. They showed me what they are. I know what they are. It's literally the old woman and the snake. You know, the old woman takes the snake in and nurses it back to health. Trump himself used this analogy in a duper's delight moment, referring to himself, of course. He's the snake. And when he told the story, he was the snake, although a lot of people miss that. You know, you are, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew I was a snake before you took me in. Well, I know what I'm dealing with. So why would I be so foolish as to treat it as if it's not that thing it's already showed itself to be? Insane. Insane. Yeah. Well, and I'm not sick of the predatory behavior. I'm sick that people not only tolerate it, not only excuse it, they sign up for it time and time again. Meanwhile, the same people, Lucy, the same people involved in these things, like Kim, that's the exact same people who can't stand me getting super chats and can't stand grift. That's the people who call everybody grifters, right? But they have no problem with graft. And in fact, they will excuse graft. They will tell you, Kim will happily come in here and tell me all the reasons why graft is okay and just more or less an expected part of the process. Well, fuck you, Kim. It can't be both ways. It can't be we're against grifters, but then graft is just completely accepted as part of the process. No, fuck you. I'm not going to have it that way. If all this graft is okay, me grifting is okay. See how the immorality inherent in the system actually affects all of us? Do you see it, Kim? I can actually make a justification for my own bad behavior on some level. On some level. Now, it doesn't make it right, but it's certainly a rationalization that has a logical basis. Well, if I'm forced into this immoral beast system, and I have no choice on some level, well, of course I'm going to have multiple states' food stamps at once. Oh, but you just assume it's a system, and of course, the system won't let a person have multiple states of food stamps. Well, but don't you remember that Bush 43 called it economic stimulus? Don't you remember that? And in fact, Bush Jr. Bush 43 was floating the idea of just mailing checks to Americans, stimulus. Well, the government was viewing food stamps and welfare as economic stimulus. Okay. So, of course, well, what limits the stimulus? It's just like the subprime mortgage crisis. At a certain point, the bottleneck in the financial services and the financial instruments, in creating all these complicated instruments, the bottleneck in the system at a certain point became how many people were willing to refinance their homes and to also take out new mortgages. It's the same thing here. That becomes a limitation eventually, is how many people are actually willing to participate. So, of course, the system is happy to let me have 2 or 3 states' food stamps. And I'm just openly saying that I've done so. They can come arrest me anytime they want, people. They can come arrest me anytime they want. Now, maybe they will, but I'm so confident that it's not going to happen. I'm just here shooting my mouth off on some version of a public record on the metaverse that, yes, I had multiple states' food stamps simultaneously, which, as far as I understand, is considered a crime by the criminal system. So, the criminal system considers it a crime that I had multiple states' food stamps. Meanwhile, I'm a human being and I put delicious, nutritious food in my body. I wasn't selling the food stamps. So the same people who have trouble with me using the system to my own advantage, the system that I was born into, that my psychology was formed, necessarily within this system, and with its just widespread graft and corruption, but I'm wrong and bad for taking advantage of the system. Fuck you. Fuck you. If you don't have a problem with what these banks are doing, you can't have a problem with the welfare queen. You can't have a problem with Benton getting food stamps in the past. And you know what? I love that financial crisis on some level, because anytime somebody said something about my food stamps, I got to take them to task over this financial system. I said, well, you ain't got no problem with what's happening on a massive scale, so therefore you ain't got a leg to stand on with respect to my food stamps, so go fuck yourself. My apologies. Now I'm telling the audience to go fuck themselves. So I'm trying to break these habits also, Mr. Suspect, if you happen to be listening. Shout out to Keith. I am that on some level, right? Thank you, Lucy. Lucy loving how real I am. Thank you. One of my new favorites to watch. Yeah, I'm definitely set up for to go overly logical. I'm one of those people that gets accused of thinking too much, and that used to really bother me. So eventually I figured out, I said, these people who are telling me I think too much, I bet they would never tell somebody that they feel too much. So finally I just started asking people when I got accused of overanalysis. Meanwhile, it's literally not possible to overanalyze. One is analyzing or they're not analyzing. There's only analysis or the lack thereof. It's literally impossible to think too much or analyze too much. Now that can manifest in a way that's detrimental to me if I'm not working with the logic and the analysis properly. That's for me to manage. However, I just ask them sometimes. So, would you ever tell a person that they feel too much? Oh no, of course not. I said, well, how can you tell me I think too much? It's the same fucking thing, man. On some level, thoughts and emotions are on the same spectrum in a way, as far as I'm concerned. The emotion is one polar opposite, and the being in its nature is irrational, and then on the other opposite end of the spectrum is just cold hard Dr. Spock logic. I'm sorry, Mr. Spock logic. Mr. Spock logic from Star Trek is the other end. So obviously the balance is right there in the middle. Shout out to the Tao. The balance is in the middle path. But thank you. I appreciate the compliment, especially because my numbers are down. It's usually more people in the house, but it's becoming a crowded landscape. And while I certainly could have waited until later to go live, sometimes when I feel inspired, that's the time to go. And I know that I can record, I can pre-record, but it's just better for me to go live. Ultimately, it's just better. But thank you, Lucy, much appreciated, much appreciated. Hey, what's happening, Sunshine Time? Good to see you. But thank you. I'm powered by compliments on some level, as long as they're genuine, right? Music Holds a Secret says when he was on EBT cards, one of his brothers says, "Oh, so I'm paying for your food." Yeah, exactly. See, that's what these people think. So no, dummy, no, dummy. You're paying the interest on the national debt. So already rich bankers are getting. That's what you're paying for, sir, with your federal income taxes. No, you're not paying. Why? Because when the federal government takes in 1.5 trillion in tax receipts, well, we know they spend about 3, right? So you can't claim that there's no way your brother can say that his money went and paid for the food stamps. No, I'm thinking the food stamps was paid for by the free money that was created out of thin air. So probably, no, sir, the bankers took your money and they're already rich. So Music Holds a Secret's brother, who's probably a proud taxpayer, has no trouble sending his tax money to Jamie Dimon, as long as it goes through the government first. See, Benito Mussolini's helicopter hand. But God forbid Music Holds a Secret's brother pays for a human being to eat food. That's how sick and twisted this society is. That the same person who has no trouble with Jamie Dimon and his $100 million yacht, or whatever Jamie Dimon's net worth is, the J.P. Morgan Chase CEO, I believe. I forget where he's at in any given time. I think that's where he's at. I've lost track. I'm not really keeping up with it like I used to. But at one point, I still thought Janet Yellen was the Fed chairman. She's actually the Secretary of the Treasury now, apparently. So even you check my work, right? Don't even take my word for it. But former chairman of the Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen. Yeah, no, Dumbo. Most of your federal tax money goes to already rich bankers to pay interest on the national debt. Why is there interest on the national debt? Oh, that's right. The government takes in 1.5 trillion and spends 3 trillion. And I haven't looked at it lately. It's probably actually worse than that now. Meanwhile, right on the heels of the financial crisis and the banker bailouts and the congressional bailouts, record profits for the big banks. Why? Because they got free money for nothing that they could then turn around and lend at 3.5% to very financially sound institutions who do take out loans for cash flow purposes. So, yes, Kim, 3.5% free money for nothing. And the government gave them the money. Well, as it turns out, the bank is the same thing as the government, as the same thing as Walmart. Walmart, Bank of America, and the United States federal government are all the same thing. They're all fingers on Benito Mussolini's helicopter hand. Can we stop pretending like things are anything other than that? Thank you. It's 2023. Can we please just call it like it is? Kicks for free. That's right. Indeed, Freedom Grower. Indeed, sir. And I tapped out, man, 08, 09. I said, you people cannot, meaning the masses, the masses, nobody in America can criticize me for taking advantage of the system, whether it's whether it was unemployment, whether it was food stamps. And I think a person who is, if the system decides that I'm entitled to a benefit, then I would have to be insane to just turn that off, to say, no, I don't want that. While my tax money, and I do pay taxes on some level, while my tax money goes to exactly what we know it goes to. And even in the best case, half of it is just literally stolen by politicians and their cronies, literally. So yeah, do I pay gasoline tax that builds a road on occasion? Yeah, I do, and the politicians steal half of that money. So yeah, I can feel good that when I put a gallon of gas in my tank, whatever amount of that goes to the government to build a road, only half of it's actually going to build a road, because the other half's going to get stolen by a politician, aka graft, aka nobody in this country has any problem with graft. Why? Because nobody's doing anything to stop it, myself included. Lord knows coming on here and talking ain't never going to amount to a hill of beans. I know that before I say word one on here. This is not a call to action. None of this is problem solving. This is not going to change anything. And I know it, and I'm okay with it. On some level, I like to hear myself talk. How about you? Anyway, 45-minute rant, I think, on the financial system. I think I can call that good enough. Not shutting down yet, but I'm going to go ahead and call that good enough for ranting and raving for today. How could anybody, Jimbo, exactly. How could anyone defend banks? They do. Do you not see them? I know you see them doing it. And the same people who do it are the same people who will call me a grifter, or the same people who used to call Crocco a grifter. Or hell, Drew got accused of it here and there. Even Drew. Thank you, Sunshine Time. And see, I was so broke for so long. I love you, Woody. I love you, brother. Woody's like my long lost brother down under. I swear. Bro. Well, and see, this is one of the reasons why I send money to Paul Enslaved, why I sent Drew money back in the day. It's because I was so broke for so long by choice. I wanted to be able to give donos to content creators. And then I remember people, oh, can you see this? Can you believe this guy's e-begging? And I'm just thinking, damn, I wish I had $10 to send them, because I appreciate the content. So, if somebody like Sunshine Time appreciates my content and wants to send me money, how can anybody have a problem with that? I don't get it. It's none of their business ultimately. Now, I believe in freedom, and I believe in freedom of speech. And if somebody wants to voice their opinion about me getting money, I don't have a problem. I like the part where people get to have an opinion. I'm just confused by the opinion, because I'm a human being who needs money on some level. Oh, but I guess you'd rather have me go out and wage slave for a corporation and make somebody else rich. So let Benton go put his limited, in this form, my time, my effort, my energy, my very essence. While my essence may be unlimited and immortal and timeless or whatever, a lot of what I'm necessarily working with in this system, in this realm, is limited. So let me go ahead and direct those resources to where rich people can get richer. And that's what America's about, y'all. America is the rich getting richer. That's what America is on some level. That's at its core, that's what this country is. So let me go out here and waste 40 plus hours of my week making by the way, they can't afford me on some level, y'all. I'm always one of the best employees everywhere I work. Always. On some level, they cannot pay me enough for what I'm worth. But yeah, I can go out here and trading your hours for a handful of dimes. That's what this is, man. And that's why I was out of the workforce so long, is because after 08, 09, before that, they could pay me enough that it was worth my time because I was able to amuse myself. After work, I could go home and play with my computers or whatever I was into at the time, right? I had enough money to go out and eat. Well, once that all dried up, I said, well, shit, I only need this apartment so that I can be presentable for the job. I only need the job to pay for the apartment. I only need this car to go to the job. So I realized, oh, I'm involved in a triangle, a pyramid. And as long as I'm willing to just say, fuck it, I don't need the apartment, I don't need the job, and I don't need the car, then I'm free on some level. Because I was involved in a pyramid scheme on some level where I only needed the apartment because I needed a place to, be able to rest and take a shower and be presentable for the job. I only really needed the car to be able to get to work and, go to the grocery store. See, I only really needed the job to pay for those things. So suddenly it dawned on me that I could just walk away from all three simultaneously, although my car was paid for. So I did choose to travel around in my car for some period of time. Right. That's the life of most Americans, is doing a whole bunch of bullshit they don't want to do so that they can maybe go to their house, have some food delivered, and, watch some Netflix. Okay. Well, I've entertained myself to a great extent for many years. Like, do I need to continue to entertain myself? Right. So I was out of the workforce for damn near an entire decade. Not a coincidence. Yeah, there you go, Truman. Hey, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. I mean, that's also true on some level. Yeah, sad state of affairs, Jimbo. But because humans adapt to their environment, we all just adapted more or less, not all of us, but massively, more often than not, people just, this is the new thing. We all know the financial system's fraudulent, but we just soldier on anyway, as if it's real on some level. And then I got the Kim slave want to come in here and settle my hash about shit he doesn't even understand. Well, it's a reverse incentive. See, he's incentivized to not understand it because in order to function within it, he's incentivized to not see the truth. It is the you can't handle the truth community on some level. And I know I'm saying on some level repeatedly. That's stuck in my head, probably from Mr. Unslaved. But that's the reality, folks. That is the reality. Meanwhile, a cult taught me to speak the truth with fearlessness, so much so that they had an actual song. We speak out in fearlessness. We're Jehovah's Witnesses. We speak out in fearlessness. So, and I told my parents, I said, it's like you're Dr. Frankenstein. I'm Frankenstein's monster, and now you've created Benton, and now they necessarily must deal with me on some level. There's this on some level. That's like my new. Is that my new? You know what I mean? On some level. We were born into it, sir. Truman. Yeah, we were born into it, and then we bought it. Right, the American dream, and that was all programming. The Ozzie and Harriet 1950s post World War II, Christian nation, that was all propaganda and ideology, just like the rest of it. But we were sold a bill of goods. The American people chose to purchase a bill of goods as if that was somehow a superior way of life. No, it's not. It was not American exceptionalism. Americans did not just realize this is the best, most moral way to live and to have the best society. That's not what happened. Americans were told to live that way, and they followed orders. It was dictated to Americans that you will live this way, and Americans did that. Now it's dictated to Americans, you will live the new way, which is what? Communism, collectivism, LGBT, the sexualizing, the sexualization of children. That's what the system is dictating. And guess what? That's what people are doing. And I don't care that some MAGA bozos open their mouth here and there. Most of the MAGA bozos are sending their kids to public schools to be indoctrinated by literal communists, Antifa types. So I don't want to hear it. I ain't here for it. Those people can go fuck themselves. As long as they can laugh and make fun and blame everything on the Democrats, they're happy while the situation continues to degenerate and while their kids are literally indoctrinated and preyed upon by the enemy. I ain't got time for these sick bozos. And on some part of me is glad that their boy is getting fucked with, aka Trump. Part of me takes pleasure and delight, even though I know it's fake. Actually, especially because I know it's fake. Especially because of that. I view this with glee and the fact that they're all cranky and edgy and feeling some type of way about it. And I can sense it, even though they don't tell me. I can sense it when I go in public. Part of me likes it. Part of me says, yes, that's exactly what you deserve, those fucking idiots. Those fucking idiots. Yeah, indeed, G Spot. Well, unless we forget, Trump has been on wrestling. Yeah, Trump, the hero of the common man, a Yankee, a blue blooded Yankee from Manhattan, supposedly, somehow the hero of the South, by the way. Never thought I'd live to see that day. Just the fact he's a Yankee and they like him. Oh, but he says this and says that. Yeah, talk is cheap, motherfucker. What has he done? Fuck all. Oh, I like him because he done everything he said he'd do. Okay, sure. Sure he didn't. Yeah, hit Trump with the chair. Yeah, Trump that was on wrestling. What else do you need to know, man? It is WWE to some extent. What else does one need to know? Well, and then again, exactly. And most of us have moved. Most of us have transcended the left-right, paradigm. And thank God, Alex Jones taught me about the left-right paradigm 10 plus years ago, which is why as soon as I saw him carrying the water for Trump, I said, well, obviously, Alex Jones is a government agent, because how can the person who educated me on the left-right paradigm, and who, by the way, was perhaps the number one most ardent critic of the Bush 43, George Bush Jr., W. Bush administration. Yeah. Alex went after him very, very hard back then. So how can this be the person who's now believes in Trump? Well, he never believed in Trump. He knows it's a bunch of bullshit. He has no choice because he's a gatekeeper and he has to serve his master. And I believe his master to be Satan. That's my belief. And it's got nothing to do with anybody else's belief. Well, that's my knowing, right? But again, I've told you people that because my psychology was formed within this system, I necessarily view things in a Christian, God, Jesus, Satan context, whether or not maybe those are real energies and I'm just speaking in a particular context. Well, that's Alan Watts himself said, well, of course, a person he even said Arkansas, by the way. I can go back and play that sometime. He said, yeah, somebody in Arkansas may have a direct experience of Christ consciousness, and the way that person interprets it is, I'm Jesus. And then he goes around telling everybody I'm Jesus. And then people say, well, no, you're not Jesus. And then he says, well, yeah, that's when Jesus was here before. He told y'all he was Jesus. And that's what people just said, no, you're not. Meaning like I'm God. And they said, well, no, you're not. Right. And then Alan Watts says, well, and then how can you argue against that logic, right? Which really you can't. Logically, it's sort of a closed loop at that point. So of course I think in those terms. I don't have a choice. That was what was given to me from a very young age. I certainly never agreed to follow the Bible as written in the English language. That's insane. That's insanity. Imagine attempting to follow the English King James Bible, the letter of the law in 2023. Insane, bro. Insane. Meanwhile, Christians have fully accepted homosexuality for the most part, especially the 301c, the 301, what is it? I've forgotten whatever that is, the corporate structure under which most churches exist. Yeah. 5013C. Yeah, of course. They have no choice but to accept homosexuality. They have no choice in the long run but to accept all the trans stuff. They have no choice because they're part of the corporate structure. It's not up to them. It's not their choice. They have nothing to do with it. Yeah, 501c3. Thank you. Yeah, they have nothing to do with it. How the pastor, whatever the pastor may or may not believe, is beside the point. They want that tax exempt status, and in order to have that, they are part of the corporate structure. So of course, Republicans have more or less fully accepted homosexuality. Of course, most Christian churches have fully accepted homosexuality. They have no choice. It's not up to them. It's Benito Mussolini's helicopter hand. Yeah, the church is yet another finger on Benito Mussolini's helicopter hand. So yeah, this is a Christian nation, unfortunately. Yeah, it is that. And it's not helping anybody. It's not helping anybody. You want to talk about you want to talk about conservatives, the Amish. If you're not Amish or live in an Amish lifestyle, you are not a traditional family values Christian, or a traditional family values conservative, rather. And they want to talk about, oh, I'm a traditional guy. I'm a traditional girl. No, you're not. Tradition is you don't vote, ladies. Tradition is women and children seen and not heard. Tradition is the man has the status in society. The woman doesn't. That's tradition in this country, folks. When did I claim that tradition was something wonderful that should be upheld? I never did. I don't believe in holding people back based on their what's between their legs. I don't believe in that. And it just surprise, surprise, Benton skews a little more lefty than the rest of you for the most part. Surprise, fucking surprise. Meanwhile, people that think they're conservatives now fully accept women having equal rights. That's not tradition in this country. Traditional family values in this country has nothing to do with women's lib. That's leftism, y'all. So how can people be conservatives, but then what we consider conservatism nowadays is rife with liberalism? Do you see the insanity, folks? At least Benton just owns it and says, yeah, I'm basically a liberal. I mean, I'm not going to vote. I'm not insane enough to vote Republican or Democrat, obviously, but if you make me choose lefty or righty, I'm going lefty. And I hate communism. If you make me choose to if I have to hang out with MAGA or Antifa, I'm hanging out with Antifa. I don't know what to tell you. Meanwhile, I'm not choosing to hang out with either one, but if you force me into one of the two groups, I'm not going to MAGA. Bozos. At least Antifa just knows they're pieces of garbage and just basically says, yeah, we're pieces of trash. No, MAGA behaves like pieces of trash, but thinks their shit don't stink. That's worse. It's worse. Hell no. Yeah, Mennonites too. Thank you, Gary. Yeah, that's your conservatives in this country is the Amish. You realize there's not a single conservative anywhere in government, right? I mean, I hope y'all know that. Like Sarah Huckabee Sanders is the governor of Arkansas. She's not a conservative. That's insane. Nothing she does will be conservative. Now, she'll say some conservative things. And yeah, will she sign some conservative legislation? Of course she will. And guess what happens? And this has already happened under Sarah Huckabee Sanders. This is what they're doing in Arkansas. My state legislature passes all sorts of conservative legislation. Guess what? The Arkansas court system shoots it all down every single time. So every time Arkansas passes some sort of state law to supposedly protect the children from the gender bending and getting preyed upon, every single time the legislature passes a law and the governor signs off on it, the court system says, well, actually, you can't do that. You can't do that. But tell me that I'm involved in a representative government as an Arkansan. Bullshit. Why would I waste my time voting Robert Escobar? And I know he's probably not out of bed yet. I don't know what time zone he's in, but he looks like a fella inclined to staying up late eating a bunch of fourth meal Taco Bell trash and wants to come over here and settle my hash. Get your own house in order, Mr. Escobar, before you come at me, bro. Driving around delivering Uber with your 0 viewers. Want to try to take me to task for having viewers and driving a truck in the past, as if I can't know something because I've worked as a truck driver. Fuck you, Robert Escobar. And we could be buddies, man. We could be metaversal friends. And I could pump up your broadcast. I could send people to your channel. But I'm going to call it like I see it, Mr. Escobar. You tubby bastard. And I got nothing against people being overweight. Hell, I was overweight at one point. I spent several years being significantly overweight in my 20s. Believe it or not. Looked like Humpty Dumpty at a certain point. Yeah, fourth meal. Thanks. Yeah, fourth meal. Yeah, he's on that fourth meal. He probably ain't out of bed yet, which is fine. I don't. It just makes me better. I ain't got to compete very hard to beat Robert Escobar. Let's face the reality. So I kind of do need Paul as somebody to sort of measure myself against. Yep. Yeah, we can't though. See, that's the thing. We can't. We should be able to, Truman Matrix. We should be able to have a blend of values. Meanwhile, nothing wrong with actual liberals, y'all. If you look at non-lefty, the liberals who are not leftist communists, other than perhaps the baby killing, there's really nothing wrong with actual liberals, right? And even some of them ain't necessarily for the baby killing, believe it or not. Now, they kind of have to be. They kind of have to tolerate it in order to be in the club, I suppose. But do you really think that the commies that are coming out of these schools are going to be anything but pro baby killing? I mean, seriously. And the young fellas already know if they're going to get any parts of pussy, they have to go along with the baby killing. Right? I mean, they don't have to, but they at least have to pretend to accept it. The baby killing. Mm-hmm. Because the young women are effectively commies, fully commies. The males, they say, are now becoming more conservative. Well, I don't think that's even true. I just think they're realizing, hey, are we really just going to all be good commies, good comrades? So they're pushing back a little bit, perhaps, maybe, not really. But there's not a single conservative in government anywhere. That includes your local fucking school board. That includes your local mayor. I don't care what words come out of their mouth. They're all part of the corporate structure. They cannot be conservative. It's not allowed. But, oh, yeah, we got some of them that claim and that give lip service. And every time the Democrats need to pass legislation, well, look, just enough Republicans voted for it that it passed. Oh, those are rhinos. So it's okay. Well, no, it's not okay. If they were actually an opposition party, then none of them would have voted for this and it would not have passed. See how it works, folks? See how it works, folks. There you go. Jimbo used to be okay with all of it. He had a Rolling Stone magazine subscription. Thought he was, yeah, man, I still identify with the pop culture to some extent. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a part of me, man. And it's never going to fully go away. Yeah, dude. And let me come at you from another angle. All media is trauma. How about that on some level? Now, obviously I'm exaggerating for effect because clearly that would include this broadcast, but it's almost a version of auto hoax. It's like all media. If one treats all media as trauma, yeah, there's going to be times when maybe the person would not experience something beneficial, but more often than not, that's going to be a good beneficial strategy for protecting oneself. I just view it more and more. I view all of this stuff as trauma, which is probably part of the reason why so many of us are in these internet ghettos, just to engage with media that's less traumatic, right? And look at the trauma that MAGA's going through with their boy under attack. It's trauma. It's traumatic. Yeah, makes me want to vomit. Indeed, sir. I can't even really enjoy movies. I'm like a film snob, which is hilarious because I'm from Arkansas and I grew up real backwards. But so it's all on a spectrum, But especially compared to the people that I grew up with, I'm like a film snob. I'm a film kind of a bit of a film nerd in a way, and there's a lot of these cultural pursuits I've had in the past, and now it's more or less ruined because I must necessarily face the reality as directly as I'm able to in order to maintain my own sanity, right? Yeah, if she was actually conservative, her ass would not be in office. Exactly. It's not possible. And and she knows if she don't play ball, she's out of there. They'll replace her. Hell, they'll assassinate her if need be. They'll do that anyway if it suits their agenda. Whoever they is, right? Well, who do you mean by they? Well, when I say they, I mean the whatever entities are assuming those are humans, like whatever those are, uh, the administrators of this wicked system. That's who I'm referring to when I say they. Yep, bought and sold. Yep. And who owns the presidency? What's whatever that evil force is that seems to be in charge of the whole shebang. Now maybe that's us collectively. Maybe humans collectively are engaged in such an output of evil that this is what we end up existing within, right? So an interesting thought experiment, to be sure. Pseudo humans, yeah. Well, I mean, I would say many have certainly fallen below the minimum threshold to even be considered humans. Now, I understand the dangers inherent inherent in dehumanizing a group, because that's like the first step towards trying to wipe them out physically, right? But yeah, they're animals anyway. Let them lose their souls, and then um, many of the people I interface with out in the real world, they've fallen below the minimum standard. They just have. Like, it's like, no, this is not good enough. Whatever the people are doing, it's just not good enough. Do better. And I don't mean the people here. I just mean in general. Like, people are not. And just look at the state of the people, man. Just look at the people. The fact is, I go out in public, and in spite of my emaciated frame, I'm one of the healthiest looking motherfuckers out here, and I'm dying. I'm actively dying. I can't even maintain my body weight. I look like a slightly more muscular person from a concentration camp. And like, that's not an exaggeration. And I look better than the general public, who on some level cannot understand that I'm sick, because my skin looks really good. And I'll always have some sort of vibrance about me, right? So on some level, I'm healthier than them, just because I don't eat garbage. I don't eat trash anymore. Yeah, they're gone. They're never coming back. I am Christos. I'm procrastinating, but I am going to come up with a soundboard, and one of them is Jurassic Liars 26 calling the general public brain dead dum dums, and that's what they are. They're brain dead dum dums. They're gone. They're never coming back, most of them. So how much do these, especially the Johnny come lately truthers, when I talk about the general public is now baby truthers, that's the ones running around thinking they can spread awareness and wake people up, and that somehow people will come together in a kumbaya moment and reform and fix the dystopia. Well, that's not going to happen. That's not a thing that can happen, in my view. But no, that's not a thing. There's no running around waking people up. And if we do think, okay, well, these people are asleep on some train tracks, and if only I run over there and wake them up, then of course they will climb up off the train tracks and get out of danger. Well, what if you wake the person up and they just choose to lay on the tracks and watch the train run over them? That's what's happening, folks. So even the folks like me who understand much more than most people what's going on, I'm still letting the train run over me, in this analogy, to some extent. On some level, that's what I'm doing. So if I can't even do anything about it, other than, of course, what I'm able to do internally, there's no hope for this realm, which is why, let me get up out of here. Beam me up, Scotty. Hopefully I don't have to come back here. Although maybe I'm now and I do subscribe to some of the Eastern philosophy, as far as like, the actual Buddha and all of this. And, maybe I've unlocked just enough of the game to where maybe when I leave this place, I will be viewed as somebody who can return here and just be some version of a sage or a so-called holy person that can just help people, right? I can come back as some kind of, while not a Buddha, some lesser version of a Buddha that can more or less just, right, that can sit meditatively with the horrors of the nightmare dystopia beast system. And I'm damn near there, folks. I'm damn near there. I mean, honestly, I almost don't give a flying fuck about any of this. I'm almost there. My own physical possessions included. I'm almost to the verge of just gathering up the things that I am going to find useful moving forward and just walking away from the rest of it. I'm not even kidding, y'all. And I have some items that are actually worth a decent amount of money, potentially. I can't even really be bothered to go through the process of converting them into fiat at this point. Like that's where I'm at because I realize it means nothing. These items mean nothing on some level. And by the way, when we talk about waking up and show me a human, I'll show you a hypocrite. So if I'm willing to, and good to see you, Terry Miller, if I'm willing to accept this idea of waking up, well, the number one thing that got me out of Normieville, and I was never truly normie, but I was normie as far as believing in the system. Although I was I was raised in a religion that taught me to be separate from that system, but I still believed in it. I believed it was what it told me it was. Good to see you, Christos. Yes, exactly, Christos. Thank you. That's exactly what I didn't want to be wrong, but that was the term I was looking for. That's exactly right, Christos. Bodhisattva. And I kind of lost my point, but it's probably better that I did. Give me a minute to sort of pause and come back to center for a minute. Centered in self, as it were. But, who cares? Who cares? Oh, never mind. I think I remember what I was going to say. Shit. It's gone again. Oh, well. What's up, Big Drink T? Good to see you. It'll come to me. I just need to take a moment. That's probably true, Tyrannicide. And in fact, I had just about the most high sugar, high fat. I had probably the highest sugar combined with the highest bad fat intake that was humanly possible as a young person. I was very active and played sports, and I'm normally just naturally thin, so I didn't get fat until my mid-20s, but when I then slowed down my activity level. But yeah, I had dude, my diet was fucking just, it could not have been worse as a young person. So I tend to agree, sir. Well, that's the thing, Gary. I don't believe that it's possible to have that impact, but it kind of is possible, right? Because so I'm sort of talking out of both sides of my mouth. I have very little hope for Gary, intervening with another person in a way that would actually change the dystopia for the better or to make it slightly less hellish. But yeah, Gary, it's possible that you can be the conduit for certain information that certain people will take the ball and run with, such as myself. Fight Club. Okay, I was talking about what got me out of the normie belief in the system. Well, Fight Club. So the first truth drop in a movie that blew me away was as a kid, and this probably actually, and I think it was within me to sort of have these spiritual pursuits, especially, more in my middle age. Thank you, Razvan. Love you, brother. Appreciate the super chat. Christ is King. Much love, y'all. I'm not going to read the NIGA part, but thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Good to see you, Razvan. So yeah. So first it was do or do not. There is no try from Yoda. That was like my first thing that really floored me, right? And I was a youth, Empire. I believe that was Empire, if I recall. Then, which is my favorite my favorite Star Wars movie. And when I say Star Wars, I'm only referring to the original trilogy. The everything that's come since that's not Star Wars, as far as I'm concerned. But never was a big Star Wars guy anyway. Although back in my day, everybody kind of was to some extent. So then it was 1998, I believe. We get into arguments about was Fight Club 98 or 99, and then I know Matrix was 99. We looked it up, and I think it is 98 for Fight Club. But Fight Club came out. The things you own end up owning you, and that really it rang true with me. I said, just immediately became a part of my being when I heard that. Because I am kind of a Dumbo I am kind of an idiot in some ways. So, I might not have ever figured that one out for myself, but I could certainly apprehend the truth inherent in that statement, right? The things you own or the things I own end up owning me. Well, that's what I've been dealing with more and more. So yeah, the fact that I went into the truck driving, there's been many benefits, but one of the drawbacks is now I'm back to where my possessions do own me in a way. Unless I prove that they don't by walking the fuck away from them. Probably I'm just going to sell some shit really fucking cheap to get rid of it. And then the rest of it's going to be, I'll give it away, or my dad can show up and take whatever he wants and whatever I need for him to store for me that I'm planning on having for the future, just in case, right? Just in case. I'd rather have my own than have to have somebody just say, here's my spare, you can use this, right? I'd rather have my own piece of hardware. Not that we're ever going full Mad Max. Yep, there you go, Truman. That's right, 2 movies. And I can tell you, there's no way that the guy that we think wrote Fight Club, there's no fucking way he wrote that. Because I've read some of the other stuff he wrote. There's no way that man wrote Fight Club. Somebody, the system itself wrote that thing, or maybe a team. I don't know. But he did not write Fight Club. I bet you everything I own on it. Yep, indeed, Producer Moose. Good to see you, brother. So that was so as much as I say waking people up is not a thing, well, the people, maybe I woke myself up. I don't know. Hard to say, but that was the first thing I encountered that really got through to me. And then The Matrix, The Matrix got through to me on a certain level. Underrated movie, by the way. I think it's sort of become fashionable to shit on Matrix, but dude, if you put it in its context in 1999, that's a badass movie. I don't care what anybody says. As a person who likes films, that's a badass movie. Don't care what anybody says. And I'm not a huge fan. I went and saw the next 2 in the theaters. Yeah, they were great as a movie making spectacle. It worked on that level. Both of those movies sucked ass as far as I'm concerned with the story and all of that. And this last one they made was just trash. But yeah, I like Snatch also. And I'm a big Brad Pitt guy, I have to say. I like Brad Pitt. Inglourious Bastards. I was not a fan of his accent. He is from Missouri, by the way. I wasn't a fan of his accent in that movie, but certainly liked his performance as well in that movie. But, even True Romance, some of his early stuff, California, Thelma and Louise, lest we forget. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I walked into the co-op in Isla Vista, California one morning, and it was either Brad Pitt sitting at the table outside the co-op eating his food, eating his breakfast, or it was his brother. Because he has a brother that looks a lot like him, apparently. It was either Brad Pitt or his brother. I mean, there's no fucking way it wasn't. And I don't know if y'all have ever been in the presence of a movie star like Johnny Depp or somebody like that. There's something about them. Like they have some sort of X factor. There's a certain charm. There's something they're just different on some level. There's something to that, being around a famous person. Benicio del Toro. Yeah, why do you need to do that's right. Why does because it's every man for himself, Moose. That's why. Because and the white people especially are bad at working together. Have you noticed? Most of these groups that the white people like to make fun of, they can work together somehow. Yeah, Matrix. Oh, it was trash, man. Trash. I watched it because that Semper Reloaded, he live streamed, he watched it and live streamed it. And when it was on HBO Max, I guess. So I said, fuck it. I had plenty of money. I paid the $15 for 1 month of HBO Max just to watch the Matrix movie. Yeah, it was garbage. But I watched it because he was live streaming it. So I watched it in real time and listened to his commentary, Shout out to Semper Reloaded. He hasn't been live in a while. Yeah. There you go, man. Yeah, there's something to that. These famous people. Something to that. I never talked to Johnny Depp, but I was within 50 feet of Johnny Depp at that when him and Damien Eccles went to that protest at the Capitol in Little Rock when Arkansas was trying to execute 8 prisoners in a week because the lethal injection drugs were expiring. Meanwhile, I'm not against the death penalty. I'm against that version of the death penalty where we're trying to hurry up and kill these mofos because the things we're going to kill them with are literally expiring. And we had some high up official in the state government in Arkansas got in trouble because he was literally trying to buy lethal injection drugs like on the black market. This is a real thing that really happened. Because why? Because most of that shit comes out of Europe, and Europe is against the death penalty, and they increasingly are not willing to provide the chemicals that they know are going to be used for those purposes. So meanwhile, if Arkansas really wants to kill people, why not go back to the firing squad or the hanging? Why do we have it's somehow better? It's somehow seen as humane to shoot these people up with chemicals, but we can't hang them from a rope and break their neck or shoot them. I don't understand it. Doesn't make any sense to me. What's up, Bex? Good to see you. No, they absolutely did that shit. If you're talking about the West Memphis 3, and the actual West Memphis 3 is the kids, and I always forget their names. So every time this comes up, I try to say all 3 of their names, and I forget. But Myers, Branch, and Hobbs, I believe, were the last names of the little boys. I think, anyway. Myers, Branch, and Hobbs. But yeah, those Eccles, Miss Kelly, and Jason Baldwin absolutely were responsible for those deaths. But I don't think they were the only ones. See, now we get into actual Satanism. See, I thought they were innocent, Jimbo. And I was getting into some of that occult stuff. I was actually like reading Damien Eccles' books. I was a fan of his material. I went and saw him speak at the University of Central Arkansas in Conway. Me and ex-wife number 2. We had to get a free ticket in advance. We went and sat and listened to him. Him and his wife, did a presentation, and yeah, it was wild. And then I went to that protest at the Capitol, and I was fully convinced that they were innocent and wrongly convicted. And in retrospect, absolutely they did it. And why did people like Johnny Depp, by the way? Johnny Depp was involved in trying to get Eccles out of prison and off of death row. Johnny Depp, Eddie Vedder, Peter Jackson, the filmmaker. Why were they all involved? Well, probably. And then Eccles, met Lori, met his wife while he was in prison, and she was a big part of getting him out of prison, was her dogged determination. Well, probably they're all involved in Satanism to some extent, most likely. I mean, I just have to think, right? I have to think Eccles to this day is rewarded for his involvement in Satanism, as far as I can tell. And there's a really good podcast series. Now we're going West Memphis 3. There's a really good podcast series I could point you to. That's what convinced me that they're guilty. Is this journalist in Memphis? Because all of that happened in West Memphis, Arkansas. So, the largest local news there is all out of Memphis, the Memphis Commercial Appeal. So this guy who wrote for the Memphis Commercial Appeal back then, he's studied the case, and he's written a couple of books about it. I think Blood Over Black was one of them. Gary Meese, I think, is the guy's name, and he did a very good podcast series that I would recommend to anybody who thinks that the West Memphis 3 were not the perpetrators. And as I used to believe, I would encourage anybody to listen to that podcast series by Gary Meese. And I don't think anybody could listen to that and not understand that, in fact, yes, they were guilty. They absolutely did that, no question. Meanwhile, I fought everybody tooth and nail for years that tried to say that, well, don't you think there's a chance they did it? I was like, hell no. And now I've changed my mind. I've realized that, yeah, of course they did it. Of course they did. Well, that's kind of the point I'm making, Razvan, is, if these people have been on death row for all these years and there wasn't really any big hurry to kill them, but now the state's not going to have enough drugs to kill them in the future? Like, I just don't, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, wait a minute. If it's okay to kill them now in a big hurry, it was okay to kill them 10 years ago in a big fat hurry. So it's like, why is the thing that's taking its sweet time now in a big fat hurry? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Oh, that's a real thing, man. There was definitely, I mean, there's no doubt there was satanic activity in the area. There's no, dude, it's well documented in that area that there was no question there was satanic activity. Now it just all gets called satanic panic now, because they say, well, look, Donahue and Sally Jesse Raphael and Oprah and all these TV shows were covering satanic panic. So, of course, because daytime TV was talking about it, it can't be real, right? Well, meanwhile, what do we all know to be true in the so-called truth community? It's all this satanic ritual abuse, and the Fitz Springmeier talking about the how the Illuminati created undetectable mind control slave. That's a lot of that is just pure. It's pure Satanism. And if you look at Eccles himself, how many of these people, what we know from Springmeier, is that a lot of these people who are involved in Satanism, they intentionally abuse their own children in order to do the combination of love bombing and horrific abuse, so that they can then create a being that might be useful to the Satanists. Well, that's what happened to Eccles. There's no doubt about it. If anybody that looks into how Eccles grew up, there's no doubt that his father intentionally subjected him to horrific levels of abuse on purpose. I don't think it's debatable. And Eccles certainly would have been identified by the system itself as somebody with like a high level of, he does seem to have a high level of ability as a so-called magician, meaning magic with a K, right? And I've had to repent. I've repented from all of this Satanism. And I was involved in, not Satanism, but I was certainly involved in some occult practices at various points. I'll admit to that. And I now see it for what it was, right? That's why I can't truly give somebody like Dominic a hard time, because he might come up out of it potentially. But I'm also, once I see Satanism, I'm going to be like, well, that's certainly, if not directly Satanism, it's Satanism adjacent, right? And then he either chooses to come to my channel or he doesn't. Exactly. That's exactly Terry Miller. Which is why it shows you that, as much as I say there's not conservatives, well, is there even liberalism to some extent? Even the liberals had to go along with the war. The coming off of 9/11. So yeah, Donahue, same thing happened to Jesse Ventura. Just for being outspoken against the war, he lost his media deals at the time. What's up, Sophia? Good to see you. Oh yeah, Eccles is still ate up with all of that. That's his life, man. Eccles lives in New York City, where he says he loves it, and he lives with Lori, and Lord only knows what kind of bizarre sexual practices they. Hey, Jimbo, let me blow your mind, sir. Did you ever hear about this guy who bought Eccles and Eccles and his wife had this old storage locker in Arkansas that they just let it. They let it expire, and it had a lot of Eccles like books and, letters he'd been sent and all these writings. And the person who ended up with the locker ended up publicizing a lot of it, dude. They're into some fucking sick shit, man. Sick stuff, bro. Straight up sick. Exactly. But we're not. See, Americans have no trouble in exchange for access to cheap goods and cheap consumer electronics. We have no trouble with China owning much of the country and the ports and all of this, right? We have no problem with that, because I want to be able to talk to you on a $300 computer with two $100 flat screens and, a $50 microphone and, all of these things that in the past would have been very expensive. Indeed, shout out to the thinkers. And shout out to Yurt, who said more or less, me and Yurt share that in common. That, my version of that is if I could have one wish on behalf of the masses, it would be that people would think for themselves. That's the only thing I would. If I could have one wish for humanity, that would be the one and only thing that they could and would think for themselves, even if they think differently than me, even if they come to different conclusions than me. Please, can it be as a result of their own thought process and not their programming? Yeah, that's true too. I agree with that. Moose says they don't care about anything. I agree with that to some extent, including their own families, as we see. Well, I think death row itself is probably cruel and unusual punishment, Razvan. I think putting look, the fact is, if I'm in prison, what's the worst if they're not going to kill me, what's the worst thing they can do to me? The worst thing they can do is put me in a cage by myself and separate me from my fellow low-life dregs of society prisoners, right? The people that I'm, these scumbags that I'm surrounded by. So the worst punishment is to take me away from them. So think about that. Yeah. So the living conditions on death row probably do represent cruel and unusual punishment. My thing is, if the state's going to kill them, it's probably more inhumane to kill them quick rather than kill them slow, right? Seems to me. Oh, but let's go through 15 years of appeals and all of this. And then what does it cost to put one person on death row, by the way? So it got to be $75,000 a year or more. Has to be just to warehouse these people. Discernment, indeed, a gift of the divine creation. Yeah, absolutely. 100%, sir. Well, and supposedly we had, it's probably a psyop, but we had this guy, Ronald Gene Simmons. There's a name for you. Reminds you of the guy from Kiss, but Ronald Gene Simmons supposedly killed like 20 of his family members when they, one by one or in small groups as they arrived to his house for Christmas one year, which that even didn't make sense to me back then, as normie as I was. And I was a reader, I was reading the newspaper when that happened I think that was in the 80s, but supposedly he just said, hey man, I don't want to be kept alive. And he confessed and just said, hey, kill me as quick as you can. And apparently they executed him within like a year and a half, I want to say. So it can be done, right? Yeah. I do like that Want to Rock and Roll All Night. I do like that song. I have to say that I like that one. Other than that, I have no use for Kiss whatsoever. Power to the people and keep the morals and values of God within. Indeed, Bernie, indeed. Good to see you, sir. The Quakers were pioneers in solitary confinement. Yes, they were, Terry Miller. Thank you for, you know what? I'd forgotten that. You're right. Yeah, the Quakers pioneered a lot of that. You're absolutely right, sir. Thank you for that. I had forgotten. Yep, absolutely right, sir. Most overplayed song ever. Yeah, I actually like it, though, I have to say. Maybe that's something wrong with me, but it is fucked out, to be sure. That is a fucked out song. Well, we'll just do a little more crowd work and then probably get out of here. I guess is OTW live? I got lost in my own sauce and forgot to check. Yeah, he's live, 15 in the house. We'll probably. I see what he's doing. We might simulcast here in a bit, and just sort of as I wind down, and maybe we can, since this is the larger audience right now, as we transition into his time slot, right? Yeah. Besides Freebird, play some Skinnerd. I like that. Give me two steps. I like that one. If we're gonna play some Skinnerd, or give me three steps. Give me three steps, mister. Give me three steps towards the door. Give me 3 steps, mister, and you ain't seeing me no more. Yep. Yep. I never know who these people are, so but yeah, Stephen Spalding. Yeah, there's a lot of excellent content creators, to be sure. I'm gonna run my ass out of here and I won't be back no more. That's right. I've been in a few of them situations. You might not be surprised to learn. Although generally I've left myself a means of escape and don't need to. Now it has happened before where I was just like, hey, just let me get the fuck out of here. Well, in fact, with my mom's husband, who's not my dad, most famously, I more or less had to plead my case to get out of there without him shooting me. It's like, hey, just let me leave. It'll be better for all of us. OTW News, the Grand Rising Show is live.
Not a long video, guys. Make sure
Yeah, I forget how talented
music and art channel.
Forget how talented
OTW
is.
Oh, with that before, you know. Or you can check it out and type in YouTube OTW music and art. You have my face while I was doing a show. We're like profile view, and I was like screaming or yelling or singing.
Seven. Thank you.
I was like,
I misread. Thank you. 7.
Yeah, there it is. That's my face right there. You see it? Look at that. Singing in a mic. Pretty ugly looking though. That's why I put it there actually. That's how ugly I can look when I'm singing.
Recordings.
Oh, no, not you, Donna. I got it. It's okay. I got it. We don't need to know anything about you, Donna, or StreamYard. I think we know enough.
I wonder why his volume's so low.
So maybe I was
Is that
thinking
super
of
loud to
playing,
you guys?
Another musical thing.
It's quiet on my end for some reason.
That you guys probably haven't seen or have. Maybe, I don't know. We have 22 people watching right now. So let's go ahead and play The Rise of the Phoenix. Yeah, there we go. Do you think they put a commercial here? No, they didn't. Cool. How's the volume? All right, people, enjoy. Enjoy the music. This is like the beginning of the show. So we started really smooth. Haven't dropped the link yet, but I will pretty soon. We'll let people come on in and enjoy a little bit of OTW blowing it on the guitar. This is all improvised, one-shot improvisation.
Anyway, that's there for anybody that might want to check it out. I don't know if I'm done or not. I can't tell sometimes. Well, I sure wish my internet would work properly. I'd like to be able to play some of my buddy's beats. Let's promote that. I need to promote his website, actually. If anybody's ever looking for beats, this is someone I've been emailing with, but actually I used to know this person in real life. We spent a decent amount of time together back in the day. I was actually really good friends with his brother. So this is Multi-Spacasian, and he's a music producer and an MC from Arkansas. So I'm going to show you his website and drop his link. If you guys ever need any, guys and gals ever need any beats. Yeah, OTW is a little boring. I'll give you that. Certainly. Yeah, here's the website. If anybody's ever in the market for some beats, he certainly, in my view, has a certain skill level, because for me, going through a lot of these random websites and trying to find trying to find beats that I can actually use without getting copyright struck. Most of it's trash, man. Like the vast majority of it is trash. So anyway, check him out if you're so inclined. That's the website. And I'm not sure that the pricing is just some sort of limited license. I'm sure he told me I could have a song for like $500. So I don't know if that's a friend price or not. Don't really know. Hey, there I am. The smell of death surrounds you. But yeah, check out my homeboy if you're interested. If you're interested. I would like to play some right now, but StreamYard cannot keep their act together with the music on such a poor connection as I'm fighting right now. I guess that's another reason to wrap up early, trying to conserve the bandwidth on some level. I like what he's doing over there, though. I tune in at times. Oh, let's see if I got this. I might play something for you if it comes through. You'll just have to let me know if it works or not. Hang on. If we stick to the audio, this might work. Give me a second. This is on I made this yesterday, just blazed. I was all blazed up and listening to Paul. Give me a second. Where would this be? I forget what directory these end up in. Oh, here it is. No, that's not it. My screen recordings, where do they go? Hang on. Is this it? Let me see. Hang on. That is not it. Damn it. Videos. But yeah, that's where it is. Videos. What's today? The 25th. Okay, this is it. 27 megabytes. I was about to say, how the hell is that 27 gigabytes? Oh, wait a minute. All right, hang on. I got to open this in. Got to open this in my web browser since I'm on StreamYard. Oh, I don't want to save it. I want to play it. Oh, what the fuck? See, Chrome will play the fucking file. Why won't Brave play the file? Fucking A. Can I not browse my computer through the web browser? This is bullshit. Hold on. We're going to get there. Fuck. Used to be a computer expert. Now I can't even operate a web browser. All right, hang on. I think I got it. I'm going to copy and paste the path and the file name probably. Aha, got it. Got it. Oh, it won't play though. When I click the link. Oh, that's crazy. It just tries to save the file. No, I want to play the file in the web browser. Why can't I do that? I don't have time for this. All right, I'm just going to have to try it, and you're probably not going to be able to hear. Let me know if you can hear this or not. Fuck. Fucking stupid. Yeah, Canadians and yeah, Boomer Tech, indeed. Yeah, Canadians run on a different algorithm. Indeed, Razvan, Boomer Tech, that's right. Full on Boomer Tech. Can y'all hear anything? Y'all hear that or not? I was doing this while Paul was live, so sound or not, should be hearing music and people talking. Can you hear Kim talking? No. Okay. They can't hear it. So, okay. That's fine. Well, Chrome has gotten so horrible that I've had to switch to Brave, and I can it'll just let me play a fucking video in Chrome, and then you guys can actually hear it. But StreamYard won't let that happen. Bummer, dude. Oh well, such is life. We tried; it did not work. Kind of hate to go out on a low note there.
Police. He's the Leo police, right? So you better watch out, people, where your sign is Leo.
Well, not in this case, Razvan, but
Christos is the.
I have like
polices
3
those,
web browsers
signs there.
that I'm using.
Check it out.
And
Feel
Brave
like
is the only one that
I'm
really works with
at the
StreamYard. Of course,
OTW
StreamYard
concert.
is designed to work with Chrome, which is effectively unusable now. Because
Sorry.
Thank you, Beck. I was trying to play some audio
Choked on
from
my
my
own.
computer, but unfortunately, without Google Chrome,
Yeah.
it's being made very difficult.
See,
I
was
will
about to laugh and
overcome, but just probably not on this broadcast.
No, that wasn't for me. Right. Bull.
Well,
Okay,
apparently
man.
Brave isn't even the best choice.
So,
for Razvan.
all right.
I'm on
So you know what
Linux,
I'm going to do? I'm
so
just
it's a
going
little
to play
different.
another one of these things.
But,
Why not? I don't mind promoting my channel. Duh. It's a small channel, people. I have like 229 subs. So make sure to go check that out. You know. See, it's OTW Music and Art, or you can also type commercial A or at OTW333.
yeah, thanks, Sophia. Yeah, appreciate you.
To
Yeah, I'll hang
go
out
ahead
for a
and
little
check that
while and
channel
we'll
out
listen to
and
OTW.
like, share, subscribe, whatever over there.
I'll do a little
Click
crowd work.
notification bells.
Meaning I
But
will
I
read
put up
the
videos
chat.
like not very like often, you know.
About to start hitting the vape.
Right.
Never know
So
when
I
that
was thinking
might
of
make
doing
its way
one
around.
pretty soon, actually. Something like that Louis Armstrong impersonation that I do. Yeah. I do a Louis Armstrong impersonation. For people who don't know that, right? I just sub, brother. Thanks a lot,
Wrong with
Special
my
K.
equipment, though.
Much love, sister.
He's super quiet
Um,
for me for some reason.
K Smith.
Probably.
K
I know.
Code.
Never mind. I know the problem.
All right.
I know.
Let me play the next one. I did another type of
I got
like
my
a more
audio turned down.
bluesy.
Faites émerger votre petite entreprise.
Under my
more
volume
commercials on my
settings, I've
stuff.
got a bunch of the sliders turned down on individual apps. That's what it is.
Okay.
So he's probably louder now. There you go.
So, 1 sec. Tell me if you got the. Oh, okay, there's no sound. But doesn't matter anyway. You guys don't need to hear that part.
All right, my internet can't even handle the screen share at this point. So I don't know. Unless y'all have got something, we're probably done. I guess I'll drop a link for the hell of it. Notice Sophia showed up yesterday. Hey, Sophia, did you not realize that I was gone? I left. I went and got in my car and went to the store. I had some business I had to do that day. It could not be avoided. So I physically had to go to the Walmart in order to conduct some business. And then when I went back and watched the end of the show, people were still typing at me in the live chat, but I was gone, man. I left. I guess I should have made that more clear. Yep, indeed. That's right. Away from keyboard, be back later. Be good, folks. That's right, Gary. Away from computer. Yeah, I think I'm done. I got nothing. If my internet connection was working, I could find some material to watch. I don't even want to mess with that at this point. Anyway, I think we're done. Oh yeah, that's what exactly. Yeah, there you go. There you go, Bex. Yeah, indeed. There's a lot to the audio side of all of this, which is why one of these days I'm going to get onto a proper internet connection. Then I will just run my audio through OBS, and it'll be a much different experience for you folks. Hey, here comes somebody. Hey, it's Bex. What's happening?
Hi, Benton. Nice to meet you.
You too. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I got to make sure I got my YouTube off. Just like I might have a there.
Okay.
There. Sorry, I might have had a echo going for you. Sorry about that.
Hey, no worries. You're good now. Thanks for joining the panel for the first time. What's on your mind?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me up. I just thought I'd come up and say good morning. Good morning for me. It's only 7:07 a.m. here.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been listening for about the last hour. I had no idea that they were using that expiry dates on chemicals or yeah, I would assume the same goes for bombs and things like that, or weapons of different sorts.
Yeah, maybe so. That's a good point. Yeah, Arkansas, I don't know, however many years ago, 2016 maybe, they attempted to execute 8 prisoners in like 10 days solely based on the lethal injection drugs were about to expire. Now, they did manage to kill a few of them, but they weren't able to get all of the ones they tried to kill. Crazy, man.
Yeah, that's insane. I never. I mean, it's. I don't want to say it's sensible. I understand it. I mean, you get it. I get what expiry dates are about. So, I just never even really thought about it. My dad's a GP, and when we were kids, he used to send us to go get any medicine from his Navy medicine pack in the closet. I don't know why, but like a carpenter's house is never finished, or a restaurateur's house never has food in it. We never had medicine in my house either that wasn't from my dad's Navy training days. And he used to send us off, and he'd say, "Oh, go to the medical pack and get this," and then shout out what expiry date it is, and it would be like 0477 or whatever, and it'd be like 1981, and my dad would be like, "Oh, it's fine, just take it."
Wow.
That was so strange. Yeah, I mean, don't quote me, that was not medical advice, friends. But it was definitely something that he made seem insignificant. Most drugs do lose their efficacy over time, though. That's why they would put them on the shelf for us. That's why drugs behind the shelves aren't accessible to people, because usually something that has to do with the chemicals degrading over time can be really dangerous, but the ones on the shelves typically don't.
Well, I think, legally a state probably would not be able to kill someone with expired drugs. I think legally that's probably not allowed.
Mhm.
I would assume the lawyers of the people who are trying to be killed could like, say, hey, we want to know what's up with these chemicals, right? I think the state would have to provide that information, I'm assuming.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's probably what happened. But the video on the screen is from when Johnny Depp came to the Arkansas State Capitol in Little Rock to protest all of this. And that's Damien Eccles on the right, who was also there. He most likely is a Satanist who murdered some children in the 90s in West Memphis, Arkansas. The very famous case that HBO made like several documentaries
Mhm.
about. Paradise Lost
Mhm.
series, which is a really well-known documentary series. If anybody saw any of that, that is indeed Johnny Depp, Sophia. Yes.
Wow. Did you ever hear of the book called Michelle Remembers?
Maybe, but I'm not exactly sure.
Mm.
It's
It's a
possible.
similar. It's a story of Satanism in Victoria, BC.
Oh, okay.
That's where I'm from, and it got discredited many years later. It was a woman who wrote it in the 80s, but I think her discrediting had to do with the generation of the false memory syndrome that they put on children. They made it seem like it was they made up this false memory syndrome due to how can I say it, the hypnotism,
Yes.
the false memory syndrome of with children under hypnotism.
Yes.
The idea of it was generated by well, I think during the satanic panic to discredit the children.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a well-known. I mean, yeah, absolutely. That's a thing that's happened for sure.
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, I don't know for certain that it was done just with the children, but looking at this, Michelle Remembers, and the fact that she was an adult telling a story about her childhood. At the same time, there was a group of children in one daycare that had sort of come forward saying that something had happened at their daycare, and at the same time, they discredit this book. Was about the same time they said all these children just had some sort of mob mentality, and the
Well,
CIA
and
came out with.
it's the system is easily able to do those things.
Hmm.
It's the system is very effective at any sort of discrediting people who come forward, even if those happen to be children.
Hmm.
So not trying to shit on what you're saying, but yeah, it's kind of
No,
like,
no,
yeah,
no, no.
of
Yeah,
course that's how it works. Yeah, of course that's
yeah,
how it works.
yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately,
I don't take much personally either, Benton. Um,
yeah, it's a bummer though.
yeah, yeah.
And I think
It is.
pretty
It
much,
really is.
I would say just about all. It seems like pretty much any institution involved in warehousing young children is preying upon them in various ways. I don't think that's debatable.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was sent off to a daycare, and I have no idea what happened, but something happened because for years after that, anytime I saw, because it was called Kinder Care here in the United States, and it's a chain, so they have like a corporate, they're branded. So anytime I would see that corporate branding, I would just be filled with rage for like years afterwards. So I don't know what they done to me, but they did something. But I have no idea what that was. And it's not just,
Hmm.
oh, I'm sensitive and I didn't want to go to daycare. That's not what it was. It was something happened, but I have no idea what.
Hmm.
No way of
No,
knowing.
I also went to daycare from age 3 to age 5, and
Mm.
it's a very strange. Yeah, I think it almost sets you up. It feels like it almost set me up for this like uh, vague memory syndrome or something. I don't know
Mm.
how else to put it. I have amazing memory for facts and things that don't involve me. Um, but when it comes to my own life, it seems like daycare is sort of feels like that place where you've got these like, momentary glimpses of. Anyways, I don't have a great childhood memories either, but daycare has a maybe it's being 3 years old and going somewhere for the first time, but also very, very a sort of ominous sense. Weird when I look back on the pictures. Like we all
Mm.
had uniforms, but they were all like sort of homemade. And I don't
Hmm.
even know, I don't even remember my mom sewing. I have to ask her. But
That's odd.
mine was not a corporate daycare. It was a little private daycare. Older woman had a pool in her in her backyard. But then even all the more reason why these uniforms were very strange.
Yeah,
Uh,
that sounds bizarre to me. Yeah, definitely.
mhm. But it was the 70s. It was the 70s. And all sorts of people in strange uniforms used to show up to our elementary school doing performances and stuff. It wasn't seen so strange then. There'd suddenly be a shutdown of everything, a shutdown of school, and look, we're going out to the field to watch these people perform. And it seemed like anyone could pull up to the school in the 70s and do a performance for the afternoon. Again, this is a child's memory, right? It's not like you have your little itinerary there and you know what's going to happen for the week. So to a child, everything feels like a surprise, when in fact it could have always been scheduled.
True. Well,
Yeah.
let's just cut to the chase. I was in elementary school when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded. Do you remember that? So,
Yeah.
well, real quick, the point I'm making is that, all across the nation here in the United States back then, most schools had a cart with a TV on it and a VCR or whatever. So at a certain point, they wheeled these carts into all the classrooms and they showed us the space shuttle. Was it Challenger? I forget which one it was, but whichever one, the first one that blew up. So they showed that to all the kids, right? That seems like it makes sense because they say, well, of course, because they didn't know it was going to blow up. That was
exactly.
not shown live. It was absolutely known that thing blew up, and then they wheeled the carts out and showed it to us.
Yes, exactly. Because they I was just thinking, no, they never plugged the TV into the wall for cable. Right? They always wheeled it in and just plugged the electricity in. There was never wind in the cable to the wall now. So it had to have been, there was no way at least in my school, there was no way they could have shown it to us live.
Well, and I mean, the TV didn't show it live either, but
Exactly,
now whether or not
exactly.
they showed it to us on tape, I have no idea, but I was too young to
But they
remember.
presented it like it was live.
Exactly. I
Exactly.
didn't know until years later that was not live. So
Yeah.
they knew they were traumatizing us intentionally.
Well, although didn't the news present it like it was live as well?
I don't remember because I was
Yeah.
literally in school.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that yeah, you're right, because no matter what, there was no, I mean, not that I'm saying that you could have been wrong there on that front. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to put it in my mind's eye too. There was no way they could have let us, they weren't watching the news in school. So you're right. No matter what, they were showing us the day after or the week after.
I think it was the same day. What I'm saying
That's
is
crazy. Yeah.
before that went out, the
Mm.
powers that be knew what had happened, and then they televised it. That's
Exactly. No, and I do pick up what you're putting down. I think it's my little child brain that can't actually comprehend why they would do that,
Well, because the people in charge are criminal psychopaths. That's why.
Well, exactly. But to the parents, how could the parent? Yeah, again, it doesn't matter. They were probably, I think they were spraying the air with Valium at the time, Benton. I think that was what was in the chemtrails.
Yeah, quite possible.
Yeah, that's one of my theories. The parents seem very happy.
Yeah, probably so.
Anyways, I wanted to pop up and say hello. I mean, I'm happy to stay in chat.
Yeah. We don't have to get all into those topics, certainly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's hard not to. It's not hard not to fall into a rabbit hole, or I think we have to keep our harnesses up top somewhere sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So certainly glad that you popped on, and
yes,
I
thank you so
definitely
much.
I'm going to be watching what you're doing over there. Sometimes I want to, and I'm not trying to get you to change what you're doing, but sometimes I want to restream you. But if you're playing music, since they've given me monetization, I'm too scared.
Oh, the music, just so you know, for my the music that I'm playing right now is a friend's music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all my coworker and future roommate, former coworker and future roommate's music. So he's let me use it. I'll make sure for him. I don't think he minds at all. He's got a YouTube channel. The music comes from Reverb Nation. It's just he's given me the rights to download it for now, but I'm sure that it's not a big deal. Like, I mean, I don't mean to laugh at you. I mean, laughing at this rights to download. He would be happy if other people were listening to his music as well.
Oh yeah, just so none of that's So you're saying you never play, or sometimes maybe you do, but not right now.
No, I only play De La Rue's music right now.
Okay, cool.
Right on. Yeah, it's all De La Rue's.
Glad.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'll be more careful what I say too then.
Well, I
Oh.
know. I hope you don't. I hope you don't.
Oh,
It's
good.
mainly the music and the copyrighted material is mainly what they seem to be looking for.
Mhm.
But then, with the possibility of the fake pandemic ramping up again, perhaps we will be cracked down upon yet again. Who knows?
That's true. That's true. And then I'm a little bit, maybe a little bit more than a perfectionist is the wrong term, but I'm a critic of myself. So I don't actually have a lot of my material up right now. I was going to pull, that's not getting into my psychoanalysis here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not what I was getting into. But I do plan. Yeah, again, thank you for the shout out. I don't have a lot of material right now. I just have my books that I've been reading, Ursula Le Guin's Left Hand of Darkness out loud and pondering it. And haven't
Yes.
been keeping all my streams up.
Oh, I see.
But I plan to. It's just more about learning how to do it. And also, I did a 27-hour marathon. I'm not going to lie. It was fun.
Damn. We had a Truther Bowl weekend where a lot of people live streamed. It happened to be the weekend of the Super Bowl, so somebody started calling it Truther Bowl. But
Oh, and people just hopped in or did a sort of a back-to-back thing and rested, and others woke up and started
well, yeah, I don't really remember, but I think I was live most of the 48 hours.
again.
Yeah.
It's a good exercise. I mean, I'm not here to push I'm not here to talk about any kind of medical advice of any sort, but I also find a good sleep fast once in a while to be brain sparking.
Yeah, I think so. I stayed up all night recently on my birthday, but I leveled up the sleeping because I worked as a long haul truck driver, and that's the quickest way to really optimize one's sleeping, I found. I'm
Yeah.
trained. My body knows if it only has an hour and a half to get a certain amount of sleep, it will absolutely get what it needs in an hour and a half.
I can appreciate that.
Because it has to,
I've al-
to
yeah.
work. Yeah.
Do you use an alarm clock, or do you wake up before your alarm clock, or you don't use one at all?
No, I almost never use an alarm clock unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah, I always use it, but I use it as backup. Like I tell myself to wake up 5 minutes before I've set it, so I still know I have.
Well, yeah, the problem with that is if I wake up super early, now I'm just thinking about the alarm clock going off.
It's true. It's true.
So the only time I set an alarm is if I have to do something that would, if I slept in, it would be a disaster. If not for that, I never set an alarm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
same for me.
I sleep from like 7 p.m. to like 3 a.m. here lately.
Oh, nice. That sounds like a nice rest, though.
Yeah. Oh, man. Go to bed early,
It's nice to be up. I was always a night owl. In fact, I didn't realize that adults didn't go to bed before midnight. My mind had made this rule that once I was an adult, I would stay up. And that didn't, anyways, it was silly. I was in my 30s before I realized I could go to bed before midnight.
Yeah, but with me, like I go to sleep sometimes at 6 p.m., especially in the winter, and then I'll wake up wide awake at like midnight, and it's kind of like being a night owl at that point.
It is, but it's almost like because you rested, you're the rested one awake.
Yes.
And the rest of the energy around you is a little bit, sometimes, has had a bit of help to stay up, whether it's, extra coffee or whatever. But the energy in the air when you wake up at 3 a.m. after sleeping is a lot different than if you stay up till 3 a.m. I find for myself.
Oh, you're right on the money there.
Yeah. 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 I've liked actually it's nice for me. If I'm up late and you're streaming at 3 a.m., then usually, I've caught you. It's just often, as a West Coaster, I've always had this rule, like, don't introduce yourself to people in the middle of the night, which doesn't work on this internet. So I've actually been a long time watcher. At least for the last 6 months or so, I've caught many of your shows after the fact, but just in the last 2 weeks since my sleep fast of a couple weeks ago, where I won't tell people how long I was up for. It totally not drug induced unless you count nicotine and marijuana as drugs, which some people do. Here in Canada.
I'm unconcerned with what people put in their bodies, by the way. Me personally.
Yeah, same for me. But I like to, keep my, I like people to not worry about me.
Yes.
Beyond,
definitely.
Yeah.
I'm trying to drop your link. I'm having trouble multitasking today for some reason.
Oh, I appreciate that. That. I'm only 2 weeks launched. 2 weeks launched my channel.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. I've been out panel walking. I guess that's what it's called. I've been panel walking for the last since April. And then decided to start my own. So I'd welcome you over anytime you feel like popping up.
Oh, sure,
and
yeah.
anyone's welcome. I do a speakeasy. If you ever see my speakeasy thing up, then that stream will not be posted. Best not to stream a speakeasy. But you'd see, again, nothing's happened at the speakeasies. I thought it was a good place where people could come and maybe use some of the censored language if they felt like they needed to get stuff off their chest, and then guarantee that it would be deleted after the fact.
Gotcha. That makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And just to although most of us can't, most of us seem to still be very good at our coded language, right? It seems to be just sort of innate for most people to not speak against what we're.
Yeah, they've trained us quite well.
Exactly. And at first I thought it might be resistance in the brain that might not be good for us, but I feel like actually learning to be more selective of our words may make us better communicators in the end. Even if it's, constructed initially around topics that we should be allowed to talk about.
Sure, I agree. And you may not know that I did a podcast during the fake pandemic on my own website, on an RSS feed, an audio only podcast. And one of the benefits of that was when the censorship was at an all-time high over here, I was over there saying whatever I wanted to say, as long as I knew not to say things that would bring the FBI to my door. I was saying whatever I wanted to say. And the podcast did very well as a result. The numbers were actually pretty decent because I think that was the big allure, was that so many people were effectively couldn't say anything on YouTube at the time. And I was over there just saying whatever I wanted for the most part.
Do you still air that broadcast?
I've actually played some of my old stuff on here before. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got a website. I'm sure I can find.
No, it's not up anymore because I was, I paid for all of that out of my own pocket. See, none of that's free. That costs money. So yeah, the website is not online now, but it was at one time. Yes.
Yeah. You'd have to pay to maintain its domain.
Well, that was the thing I still have the domain name. The point I'm making is that at a certain point, I was happy to do it as long as I could afford it. Well, the minute it wasn't in the budget, it just got taken down. That's how that works, right?
Yeah.
And
I
then
understand
because individual people, for whatever reason, if people had seen the value and had donated or whatever, which I never asked for, then it would probably still be up. But that's a whole nother, there's an entire story around all of that that's not worth going into here.
Yeah, but it was a beneficial, it definitely worked as a beneficial tool at the time for people.
Oh, yeah, it was great. It helped a lot of people. And actually, there's people who listen to me to this day that found me through that.
Oh, neat.
Neat. Yeah, it was
I was on Facebook, I'm a Facebook and YouTube girl only. I've used a few other, I build my little repertoire one thing at a time. I'm old enough to have used a plug-in from the TV that, worked as a remote control with a cord. I know that you're similarly aged, and I've heard that you've been on the internet since the 90s, and I'm always in awe. I'm always in awe of, people have no idea how much self-study it took to become internet savvy for
oh my God,
born in the early 70s. I always get it.
Well, I was born in 75, but I grew up in Arkansas, which was 20 years behind both coasts. So I might as well have been born in 1955 in some ways. I mean, that's a real thing. Yep.
Neat.
So, yeah, it's been helpful in the modern context. It's been very helpful. Yeah. To have that.
I really appreciate what you do. I really appreciate.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you listening and watching. And well, like I said, I got my eye on you now. So
cool.
And I will say this with the live streams, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do or how to run their stuff, but as you get more and more viewers, live viewers, and as you get more and more engagement, what you're going to find is that especially if you want to get monetized in the future, like it's actually going to be way better to just leave them all up in the long run.
Yes.
because
Yes.
for the YouTube metrics. But for now, you're probably doing it the right way. And I don't even know that much about YouTube.
No,
honestly. I really don't.
yeah, I appreciate it. I did a bit of live performance as a amateur stand-up comedian here in
Oh, awesome.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I'm on an island, so I actually did very well. But unless you want to leave an island, you start getting amateur comedians start pushing each other around, like, oh, you need to do this, and you need to do that to be better. It's like, well, I'm not going anywhere, right? You guys are the ones that want to go to LA, right? I'm staying here. But in doing so, I learned quite a bit about putting on shows. And I definitely plan to, I think I was planning on, my intention was to have a little bit of temptation to the channel, right? And it has worked really well. I've found I have a really, already I have a solid base of people who really enjoy hanging out in the room. But yeah, I do plan to leave some up, but I have a pretty insane numbers for 2 weeks in. It's working out okay right now. But
awesome.
Yeah, definitely we have a lot of fun playing around with the lexicon of things, and people have come up with all sorts of like really funny words. Yeah. And that's
you're a meme. You're being
yeah,
memed.
yeah, it has become a bit of a meme. So
hey, you are a meme. Sorry, I don't know why I didn't have you on the screen there. I'm out of it today. I'm off my game today. So thank you for dealing with that. Much appreciated.
Oh well, it feels. Oftentimes I always assume any kind of awkwardness is me. So yeah, I don't even notice. Thank you. And you're on your game so much. Maybe it's your pinpointed precision on things.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's as noticeable or if it's just you feeling off a little. It's always a pleasure to hear your opinions on things. And one thing I really respect about you is your conviction of self, if that's the right, conviction of self. Sounds like we've put ourselves in some sort of jail or something. That's not what I mean. Just that sense of self that you present. I feel is as is 100% earnest, right? Like, this is who you are. This is what you say. You're consistent in it. It's given me a real it's sort of found I have a lot of that in myself. But as a woman, I'm also neurodivergent, and as a woman, I'm definitely wear a mask of real empathy, and I mean it. I am constantly trying to sort of suss out the people around me and make sure everyone's okay. But I've realized on a channel, like, people come to me because I'm like that. But I've noticed that sometimes I should just leave certain people backstage, knowing that it'll change the dynamic of what's happening in the conversation. When I'm, my instinct is just let everybody up all the time and stuff. So it's been really neat watching how the channels work and knowing that you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I really appreciate watching such a solid. Yeah, really, ever since I've been on the internet. I don't want to be all like fanfare. That's not really my type, right? But definitely, I really respect you. I really respect
Thank you.
Your comments in other chats. And I hope to present a similarly consistent character, my own consistent character as myself. It's a real incentive. I see a lot of similarities.
Well, you got Christos over there, so you're probably doing something right. Look at it.
Yes, thank you.
And then he's been a good. Well, and sorry, real quick, talking about the stand-up comedy, I'm sure you understand that one must necessarily work on their skill set and all of that. So I think you'll be just fine on that basis.
Thank you. Yes, sound bites matter. Learning to not say I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That was a benefit of the podcast. I would a lot of times I would go back and edit all of those out.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Then when you do that,
not that tedious as you might think, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
It's pretty easy to do just in Audacity or whatever, which I know Audacity's fallen out of favor for various reasons, but I still use it. But it was not that difficult to do. But in the live stream era, it's a different thing. So you're right. I do a lot of that and I certainly hear myself as I'm doing it. So I want to minimize that, as I'm sure you do as well.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, cool. Anytime you want to pop on, and I do enjoy having someone to talk shop with to some extent. So
sure. I am definitely. Ever since I've been here live and you've not commented, I'm like, oh, hit the link. I'm like, No, just say hi a few times, because I don't want to seem like, I like, as a panel walker, I know there's times in the past few months I could have hit your link. But also just really wanted to, I really enjoy your room. Like, I really enjoy, I wanted to make sure that I knew how to approach. Hey, again, I don't want to seem so tactical. I really, yeah, I've really enjoyed watching you, and I really appreciate being up here. And I would be more than happy to join you anytime.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm glad you came on and introduced yourself. And
Yeah,
I
thanks
think
for having me.
indeed, and I think that's a great place to wrap up the show, actually. So, and I still need to figure your name out where I don't have to pause and think. Pythagorasaurus Bex, is that right?
This is where I would say, this is where I've thrown in a bit of
Say
humor.
Bex?
Yeah, I went by my full name on YouTube for the last 6 months. I just, when I launched my channel, put picked a handle to use, and so I was going around as my whole name, but being Bex on panels, and people knew me as Bex. So I threw the Pythagosaurus in there to still go with this sort of Bex, the idea that people would just remember Bex. And then I also, in the as an homage to Worcester sauce, or Worcestershire, or however people want to say it, we only pronounce the one R, the last R. I just say Pythagosaurus Bex. It was on purpose. It was just I personally
Okay.
just say
I can say
Pythagosaurus.
that.
It's easy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, I can
but
say
I
that.
do.
Yeah.
I do understand it's read Pythagorasaurus Rex.
That's
but
what's fucking me up. Yeah, that's what's fucking me up.
Yeah, so just remember Worcester sauce and Pythagosaurus, or just Bex works too. I could also change the spelling.
And one of these days, when we need some levity, I will pronounce that word you just said, but in my ridiculous accent, and it will be hilarious. It will be hilarious.
I look forward to it.
We have a way of saying that word, and it's nowhere near what it should be. I can assure you.
Well, I know I like to say Worcestershire sauce. I'm not going to lie. That's how it's spelt, and that's what I like to say. But I do understand that many people on the planet say Worcester. But we'll save this dialogue for another day.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here. I'm about to click the button.
Thanks for having me, Benton. Yeah. Hit the button, or I'll hit the button either way. Yours is faster.
Right on. That was Pythagosaurus Bex. Check her out over at her channel. Sounds like a lot of cool stuff going on. We popped in from time to time. Now that I know the music may not, in fact, be any sort of an obstacle for me being able to. I do like having people I can restream. So I'd like to be able to check in. So good news on that front. Apologies for nearly ending the show about 3 different times and then changing my mind. That annoys me also. Yurt seems to have a habit of that. So I'm going to do my best in the future not to do that, but I will probably fall short in the interim. Please bear with me. It's been real. Thanks for watching. Bye.